I used a combination of Midjourney and Photoshop's new Generative Fill features to go crazy on depicting deities that I have been researching for so long. It's so satisfying as a researcher and a graphic designer to be able to plug in ideas, environments, and styles and colors, and to describe a scene that has so many mythical undertones. There was actually a time where I was preparing to do this kind of deck for my research. It was always something of an ultimate goal to make an oracle deck. But when I saw the potential of AI generation, I started to experiment with it. And I started to find my language, my art style. Ultimately, I settled on a sort of statue aesthetic, making the deities look a bit uncanny, like intentionally, but not like so much AI art is just fantasy. It's like showing deities as being almost human or alive or powerful and just existing. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to show them as statues in potentially our own world, set up, built, and constructed in various locations. I wanted to portray them in a way that it felt like we could do that, like we could make them real, that we could bring them back, that we could create new statues and new shrines and new temples for a more global pan-human pantheon. Hey there everyone, I have some work to do today. I thought I'd do a little behind the scenes of my process and how I made these cards. I'm going to demonstrate with an edit to Surreal. It's not as simple as just asking an AI to generate something and getting a result. If you saw my video on the fertility goddess, I show that she takes inspiration from deities from around the world, from various different grain, grass type cultures. And rice to some degree is also basically a grass, and so is corn or maize. Also, there are various kinds of grains in the West other than just wheat. There's rye, barley, and so on. Let me show you. If you saw another one of the videos, I will be chopping up into smaller parts to make it more watchable. But Callie and I at Studio Pandemonia actually came out with a video where we broke down the 12 staple crops of the world, or staple crop categories. We made those categories correlate to zodiac to make it thematic. This was the map I made to do that video. I'm going to use it here to add some more crops to my image here of Surreal. I like to add some more grains and grasses that are staple crops. At least 3 different major centers of Neolithic expansion. That would be the one that most people talk about, which is the West Asian Neolithic right here, grain in the Fertile Crescent area, which spread out from there all the way to much of Europe, even down here, the Nile, and then all the way to India. And eventually it actually reached China, and ancient Chinese civilizations cultivated grain, wheat from the Middle East. Another of these Neolithics was here with rice in southern China around Vietnam, and from there it spread into China and spread down into Indochina and then over into the Ganges Delta around Bangladesh today. And the third and final one that I'll be referencing here would be the Mesoamerican Neolithic expansion, where maize seems to have spread from somewhere in Central America, all the way into the Mississippi Valley, up into the Iroquois, Great Lakes region, and then Southwest region, and then down into even the Incan civilization. And I only really represent wheat from the Western Neolithic, and I've never really been completely satisfied with that. Of course, a lot of the inspiration I did with the deity herself comes from a Syrian source, and so she has more of a Semitic background. And I wanted to have her resemble the Kabyle type art, with her sitting on a throne surrounded by abundance. And so far it's only really abundantly grain, and you can see there's a bushel of wheat beside her, just like in the Virgo constellation. But I think I could do better. We could maybe get some rice in the background here, some maize, do a mixed use kind of more universal thing. And this should demonstrate the kind of way that I edit. Now, maybe it's a disaster and it won't work at all. There's plenty of times that something doesn't work. For instance, maybe I'll demonstrate real quick just how bad it can be at times generating stuff that I really want. I really want a sickle. I want her to be wielding a sickle probably in her left hand. And what I will be using is a autofill generative fill feature that's within Photoshop. I've been using it since its beta came out, quite obsessively. I've been using it for as much as I possibly can. I think it's revolutionary. And it especially makes working with AI art better because you're able to polish that art, get rid of the bad hands and all the other notoriously bad things that AI tends to do, and put also more of your work into it, your intention. Put objects in there that you intend to put there. It feels more artistic to me. It feels like I'm really engaging with not only the mythology and research I'm dealing with, but with the process of art and composition and stuff like that. See what happens when I try to generate her holding a sickle. Now I'm not entirely sure how she'll be holding this sickle. That's a question, but I'll just kind of maybe just put a shape here. I might put in just sickle. It's probably a bit small. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is. Yeah, those are just basically worthless. So maybe expand the size a little bit. Well, that's also another problem here. I need to make sure I actually draw it within the frame. Maybe I need it to be this way. I'm not sure. I just don't see how to have her hold it right. But see, look, a very evident, obvious shape. I have to give it usually a little more room. Otherwise, it's not going to generate quite right. It might just merge a hand into a monster. So if I say sickle, let's see what happens. Ruin the hand, and that's bad, and that's bad. This tool is pulling from Photoshop, is using their own database. And I've noticed with certain things like a sickle, like it's kind of almost doing what a sickle is. There's metal and it's kind of an object. So sometimes I put color into it because it's a golden age, it's the Neolithic, so something more like copper or bronze would be a vibe. See, I already like the color much better on these, but they're all meaningless. Sometimes I might try something else. It's like if sickle just isn't working because it just doesn't seem to have enough data on what a sickle is, I might just put scythe, because a scythe might be more common in the database. I don't know. Maybe it's going to generate a small scythe that basically is what a sickle is, you know. Yeah, it continues to draw. Basically, it's almost no different from what it has been drawing when I asked for a sickle. Okay, so this is a point where I basically give up. I give up on its capacity to learn. And I start from scratch, and I start thinking about how to build it myself, right? Again, this is probably more complicated than people think. They think that you just ask for a sickle and it'll make a sickle, and it doesn't. I mean, it'd be really great if it did, because I have plenty of other things I'd rather be doing than just trying to generate something so common and obvious. And if you want to say, why don't I just draw it myself? This art style is not really conducive to drawing it myself. I would have to make it hyper real. I would basically have to take a picture and post that picture into here. I don't have a scythe, so I'd have to be like taking other people's scythe pictures. I just was content to not have one if it wasn't going to generate one. But what I might do here, I might have her get a handle, generate a handle. You see, it sometimes does, because that's a pretty good hand that it changed. It doesn't look bad, but that wasn't what I was asking for. It thinks I mean hand when I say handle. So holding, maybe an action, holding a handle. A little closer. It's now trying to hold something. Looks like it's holding a fork there. Maybe if I have it hold something that has a good handle, but is more common in the database, and then I could remove whatever it is that isn't and turn it into a scythe. So a hammer is pretty common. So holding a hammer. So I got a flashlight. A wrench. That's a hammer. So I think the issue I have here mostly is I've drawn something that doesn't look like a hammer. So if I do draw something that looks like a hammer, it's kind of big. I say holding hammer. See, it's trying. It's a little thicker. I think, see how thick this is? I don't know if it's thick enough, because it's very picky. It might need a whole lot of extra space, this ridiculous amount of extra space, to generate what I actually want. That's getting close right there. Not too bad. I could use this one. Let's try. The hand is totally effed up, but I'll probably have to like delete things and bring the hand back as it was. But for now, let's see if this is even worth it. I guess we want to remove this because we don't want this bulk getting in the way of the shape that we want to imply. Yeah, so now I also want to merge the layers that I'm working with, the beginnings of holding an object, and then I want to think about what way I want the scythe or the sickle to go. Would it be natural for her to be holding it like this? That's the question as well. Like, it's already kind of weird how she's holding it, but I could see how someone could be holding something like that on the side. They don't want the blade next to them, gesturing towards the field over here, and I'll probably keep this field grain because I really like the way these corn heads look. But yeah, see, it's making kind of a pickaxe. You see, that's not too bad. The key to working with this is like really iterating on it and really baby steps. So this time I might want to add another layer on top of this to try to imply the shape that I want. I want this to go back like this. It's not going to do that. Most likely it's going to remove it. Or it's going to extend that thing, which I don't want at all. So yeah, go back to this. Maybe I want to reinforce the idea of a sickle. You know, it is adding this blade back here, but it's weird and crazy, but I could work with this. It's possible if I do something like this. Remove this whole thing. There is a remove tool, but actually doing this and saying remove works better than the remove tool, and it's faster. Photoshop users out there. Oh, I see, it's trying to make another blade. Oh, look at that. That looks removable. See, it's like separate. If it's not removing properly, but it still separates the things, then you could just actively remove. Okay, so now that's gone. So now I want to merge all these sickles back together again. Then, if you see, we're starting to get a shape that we want. Now this hopefully is not going to delete anything. That's the problem. I also don't want to touch the gold at all because it wants to merge whatever is on one side with whatever's on the other side. So if it touches the gold, it's going to think that you want the gold all the way through here to touch the silver, but no, we want the silver to touch the silver. Usually when something's disorganized like this, it wants to smooth it out. So this could actually work. Or it removes it. So I gotta reinforce that there's a thing there. If you put in nothing, that also basically means remove. I can't believe it. Ooh, that's really good. That is very good. You see that? That is a winner. That looks pretty good. The only problem now is the handle. The hand shouldn't be gold, but now it knows what this is. I know that we started with this and we built from there, but now you can see the context and it might be able to generate a handle that's better. It's all about iterations. So I might say holding handle. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know what it is doing there. But now we have a sickle, we have a pretty good blade up there. I don't want to lose it, so now I'm a little more invested. And that's another thing about this that's kind of inspiring, is like, you could be messing around like we did, and there's many points that I want to give up, but I just stuck with it, and I tried different angles, and then boom, now we're going to save the sloppier parts. It's an investment of time, as you can see, but that's art. This is when I might want to be very specific about the material, and I want it to be a very mainstream material, so like wooden handle would be like the most generic common thing I can think of. You see that? That's almost getting there. I like the way it looks, so I'm gonna merge that down. The hand looks terrible and it's totally ruined, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut off everything that I edited down here and get back to the original hand. So as you see, we started with the handle and built from there, but now we're building from there back to the hand. And so we like the original hand. I still like the original hand, but let's move it this way into a better placement from here and include much of the hand. So now for this type of thing, I just sometimes say nothing because it might give me exactly what I want. Sometimes you don't want words in there because it's just gonna get confused. Try handle again. Ooh, there's something. For one, overall, how's the size of the blade? It's honestly a little big. So if I just shrink it a little bit more, make it more manageable, and then twist it a bit. Yes, twist it, and then I needed to make sure it feasibly could go over the edge like this. So basically like that. Let's fix the cloud here. So now if I lower it and imply that the head's just very close to where a little bit, so that makes sense. I mean, frankly, this head seat rest could probably move back a little bit. So that might give it a little more room to actually come down here. And then I might want to go super close and manually cut this. So focusing on one single object is not always the most important use of my time. However it is, I'm a perfectionist and I'm invested now. See, now it's already laying within the thing. I don't need to generate anything there. I just needed to fill out the rest like it's already done. That one's actually, you wouldn't think it, but that one's pretty nice because it creates the shadiness that I want, that an object is there for it to generate the rest of the object in between right here. See? So here's what we had, here's what we have. You see, the more time you put in, the more details. But you can see how, like, if I were to say this is AI art or AI assisted, you know, somehow, people might think that I just did this. Boom. But I did so much work. Arguably too much work. And because, oh, it's AI art, it's like, oh, I'm lazy, I didn't do any work. I can see a slight shading differential here, and there are ways to go with that manually, but a simple click of a button here does a lot of stuff that Photoshop used to make you do manually. Look at that. No need to get my brush tool or stamp tool or some other BS. It's just that easy. You can still see that layer there, right? There, fixed. You just have to try more, a few more times, a few more iterations, you know? Always try one more time. Well, not always. Then you'll be addicted to results. You'll just try forever and never give up. You don't want to never give up. Some things aren't really worth it. It's a hard lesson for me to learn. Sometimes I try to solve every problem with one fell swoop, and it's not the best idea. There, one by one, just fix the little parts of the fingers. Looks like a lightsaber hilt or something. I might actually settle for this one. Why? Because I can tweak it. That's better. I think she needs at least one finger in front to be holding it. And I think if we just return this finger to its rightful place. Yeah, that looks pretty good on its own. I'm not sure if I like the white part. She's wearing white. Somehow I think that complements it a bit. Looking at the whole picture, the only issue I think is that the metal is iron. Do I care? Yeah. That's the best part of being the artist and the researcher, which sometimes it's very hard to find a combination of the two. Someone who knows the research and also is completely in control of the artistic direction. And they don't have to negotiate for it or fight about it. Someone else, if I were to be like, hey, could you make that sickle bronze instead of iron? Then they might be like, really? Like, that's important. It's very important thematically and mythologically. And so I find like this is so liberating as a researcher. I'm not limited. I can do whatever I want to do, whatever I think, whatever comes to mind. And I'm a very scatterbrained type person. So what I'm doing here, I would most certainly not risk asking it to generate a good looking sickle again, right? It will not. You can't really tell it just to color a thing differently. It will change it fundamentally. So it's not really an option, at least not at the moment. It'd be nice if there was a generator that like you have a subset of just like change the color. Because it can be very time consuming sometimes to find a right color and then blend it, harmonize it naturally with everything else. So right now I want to probably play with the hue. No, I want to play with color balance. I want some more yellow. Yes, I want it to be bronze. Use references for stuff like this sometimes. Of course, this is rusted, so to speak. This is old bronze, oxygenated. Here's some old bronze sickles. It's got that brassy yellow color. That being said, they do have quite a lot of yellow in them, but I want it to be subtle, and a little bit of red to give it that orange hue, which is much richer. It also blends with her chair a bit more. So a little bit of that. I don't think I'm going to be going with any of that. If I want it too green, it's going to look weird. So I'll start with that. As you can see, it's already a distinct color from iron. And it's subtle, and I don't really want to change it too crazily. But one thing I probably will do is I will bring up the vibrance. This is my favorite thing in Photoshop ever. Look at that. Look at it. 100% vibrance. Bringing up, I'd go all the way. Beautiful. It's got a shine to it. So now that I have the right color that I want, I've always noticed there's a little bit of a weird head going on here. I'm not sure what's going on. And sure, like, it's a small card. It's not the biggest thing ever. It's probably going to be the same size as Astral Atlas cards like this big. So like you're not going to be looking like seeing the blade details, you know. But I do post these on other art kind of services too, even art prints eventually. So I want to have pretty high quality stuff. I also noticed there's a UFO or something over here. Okay, so I had started this saying it's difficult, here's why, and now I showed you how to make a difficult situation work. I think I'll keep it. I will leave it as a separate layer. So, generating backgrounds, generating landscapes, changing this to have more diverse representation of staple crops from around the world. I'm going to start with corn because I think corn up front here would look pretty nice. Now, I am concerned because sometimes when they generate corn or maize, it's going to look basically like grains, or it's not going to look right at all. So maybe this is going to be a total disaster. I would like it if it wasn't. But it was able to generate okay grains. Those aren't the most realistic grains ever, but they're acceptable at this view length, and they still get the idea across. And as an idealist, I am most preoccupied with the idea I'm trying to get across. So I just got to remember that these two are right here, and the edge is right there, and the stone is basically the edge of where I would want the headstalks of the maize to be seen. Basically, they will cut on this line and then round it out. So everything outside of that is basically just for context and for art's sake. And so I can have bigger versions of this like I do sometimes. I will just start off the bat, I gotta stay on this side of the stone, with the idea of corn. Just gonna see what happens. It's a big piece of corn. There's a few corn cobs just hanging out. If I say grass of corn, it makes no sense, but it might generate grass and corn together, which is what we're going for. See, that's almost closer. At least it's trying to make a plant that's actually there. It's in the environment, not just throwing a corn in the middle of nowhere. See, it's getting stalks. It's getting a little closer. See, that looks more like corn. Let's get a reference here too. So this is what we're going for. We're going for having a little bit of corn, and they have these big leafy, almost banana tree-like stalks. We want that vibe. And it's okay to have them like this, open, but I would prefer if they were more closed, like this. And part of the reason it might not be doing that is because it's so yellow. You see, it's just imbuing everything with yellow because of the background. corn maize. I'm not using the actual term maize, M-A-I-Z-E, because I'm not sure if it would actually recognize that in these databases. I will try. But corn is the more generic term. So that's almost corn-like. It's just very vague. It's not confident in its assumptions here. That's starting to look a little corny. That looks like old-fashioned corn. It doesn't look far from this, which is more golden corn. Kind of like the idea of them being some down there. In fact, I'm going to keep those. This one's getting almost close. But I think what I need to do is turn tail. It's time to go into the background and try to inform the foreground with a landscape that is greener, because corn does require a lot more moisture to grow than wheat. So I could say something like cornfield. Oh god. Ooh. So I might want to say green. Make sure it doesn't just try to make the same yellow as on the other side. Now maybe I'll settle for yellow, just because it's more consistent. The color palette, here, see, is there. It doesn't realize that corn isn't just giant cobs coming out of the ground. And that looks like bananas. And that doesn't look anything like where we're at. So this one isn't bad. This one's the best that it's done. I'll try to put maize in there. Well, it's very yellow. And there's some cases here, like in this image here, where corn can look very yellow in general because of these high stalks that are not the corn. The main corn fruit, which is more near the middle, right? But these are the breeders. And it could look like that from far away. And that's definitely better than a lot of the ones that are too close, because we have a big, wide landscape here, and then this side was just nothing. So that might be doable. Okay, that's kind of nice too. But it doesn't show, yeah, there's not enough going on there. Yeah, this one really is the best. So I'm actually going to try to keep that and work off of it, I suppose. Maybe if I go for a green field back here. It's not bad. It's very pretty. There's a more mixed, realistic looking field. It's cutting into something else. But that's also better to scale. So I think we're gonna have to accept that that's just the white, the yellowness of what they look like from the side. I need to get more green in here. Green, corn. I'll put in cornfield again. I'll try to fill in the gap between the yellow and the green down here. Maize field. Because corn might just be forcing it to make corn on the cob. That middle one ain't the end of the world. It's not corn, but it's a plant. My goodness, horrifying. Well, that's a lot better. That's not bad. I'm gonna stick with that, and then I'm gonna try to blend those two together right at this level. It's almost implying that it's a different crop entirely back behind there, but that's maybe just a different type of grain. And ambiguity is sometimes your best friend when it comes to art. When you're doing backgrounds, that is. Yeah, there is some yellow corn that when it's being harvested, it turns this color when it's ready. And since she represents the harvest, and it is taking place during Virgo in September, which is sure before a lot of harvest, it makes sense. So before and after, and you can see this stalk here looks pretty okay, but that's kind of what I want to go for. I wanted to go for like two different vibes, but they're not too crazily different, I feel. We have an entire section down here where not really anything's going on. First I'll try to see if it could just make a more realistic garden. Interesting. I didn't even think of that as being a path. Sometimes it suggests things that are interesting. Making offerings here. And there's steps, which is also an interesting concept. As it is, it's kind of wood. I don't really want stone, I don't think. That is clay, which is more acceptable, I think. But I actually like the wood look here, honestly, so I don't want to undo that good work. So now I want to get the other crop in here. Of course, there's terraces, so either we could do a terrace in the background, very far back. Things look kind of dry where she's at. It doesn't seem like to be rice paddies there. I could try, maybe in the backgrounds, but what I want to probably try to do is emulate some of this more simple close-up. It's actually similar to rice and wheat, but it's a kind of more, it's more like a grain. And they would harvest that, actually. And it kind of looks like the rice I was just looking up. So that is kind of fun, though. Looks like those little nuts or seeds or whatever they are there are kind of falling into the grass like that. To see if we can make terraces in the background. Those are not terraces at all. Those are desert. I almost want to keep it. I'm curious to see what it generates, actually. Maybe I'm just going to accept whatever else. Yeah, we don't want nothingness. Well, that's creepy. That's not even a mountain. That's like giant waves or something. I'm going to try singular. Very real looking. That's jungly. Tropical. It's making dunes. This is a really pretty image. So maybe that's under hillside or terrace farming. Those are really nice hills. I really like those hills. Do they fit? They work with each other, and then they kind of balance out the colors of the green down here, green, trinity of green, and it makes it so this doesn't look so dry. It looks a little wetter. It's just a field, but there's still arable land on both sides, and so the yellow and the yellow. To me, that kind of actually looks good. It looks better than this. This is pretty bland, to be fair. I'm definitely going to go with that, I think. And with that, I think we've revolutionized the image for sure. Let's maybe show some offerings. Now, it all depends on how much room we have here. Put in the frame. Oh, we got no room. There's nothing we can fit on the ground. In fact, you don't even see the grass that I put there, really. So, I could change the size of some things, though, if I wanted to. I could take all of this and give it some more room to breathe. Yeah, you get more of the vibe. You see a little bit less of her details, but sometimes I don't want you to see all the details because there's blemishes, there's lines. So yeah, that gives a little more depth. You can really see more of the shapes. So I will try turning it off again, but I just gotta remember where it's at. It's right up there. I want to make like a bowl of rice. So instead we're just gonna have offerings from different cultures. The problem with these types of things, they often look fake. Okay, so one thing to do might be to say food offerings. a nice bowl. It's got like tomatoes or something in it. So if you want something like beans, a very important crop in the world. Like beans, might want even potatoes, probably sorghum and millet. Or I could say porridge, because porridge is usually made with millets, which is a kind of grain that has a higher fat content, if you see the video. Oh, we want a bowl of millet, yeah. So millets, again, are like grains, so like this, but that looks pretty close to... And peppers. Let's go with the Mesoamerican. Tomatoes are actually from South America. Not bad. Huh. Ooh, nice peppers. See, I like these tomatoes and I like these peppers. I like both. Can I copy these? Yes, I can. I can make this one tomatoes and the other one peppers. I like the left side peppers, I think. Okay, so now it's got both. So now I think tomatoes and peppers are good together. It's an alright selection. Again, we don't want to take all day. I've basically taken all day on this one card. Just to show that, like, I could spend years working on this and still probably find ways of improving it. Of course, that's not necessary and not preferable, just for fun. But I think that from far away looks pretty fun. The only thing bothering me is this bowl looks very plastic. I would like it to be more wood. So yes, that's a much better wooden bowl for sure. That's as much as I want to fundamentally change. So that's a good little demonstration, I think, of what I do. Let's enable the, let's put the frame and the text back on. And here we have, to show you, enable layer mask. This is basically what we got. That's the final card right there. It looks pretty good. The offerings are pretty cute. It shows and indicates a little bit more of the diversity. Makes me kind of want rice, honestly, right now. I want some rice and some curry or something. So, I will actually have dinner now, because that's how long this took to do. Just one card. Can you imagine doing that for every card? Basically did. All 72 of them. Honestly, probably put more effort into this one, just every little bit I was trying to represent. But I really enjoy doing that. I really enjoy just all the little details that I sprinkle in every now and then. For instance, I put, this is another Easter egg. I put a lot of little Easter eggs through my second edit. And we have Gaia here, and there's many Easter eggs about her. Each of her hands represents a different one of the directions. It's kind of like the world card in a tarot. And there's also the 3 gems or jewels, which is common to many mythologies, including tokens, Silmarils. And then over here we have an eagle in the distance. Who's the eagle? It is Oranos, or in our system, Aether. He is the Sky Father, partner of Gaia. And there's a lot of thought that goes into this imagery. Again, it's not just purely generated and accepted as it is. I had to add and tweak all those details. But there we have it. I'll show you different parts of the process later. Thanks for joining me.